Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores a goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Hey there, and a big welcome into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. It is a Friday. This episode releasing a tad later than normal, but that's okay. It's a big Premier League week, so we actually have matches to recap from the week. We also have some Bundesliga matches to preview for this weekend, and the MLS runs closer and closer. No MLS today, but I just wanted to remind you, March 1st, we're going to get started with Major League Soccer, and I am awfully excited for it, especially here in the city of Chicago, able to go down to those matches, see the Chicago Fire rotate through all the teams that represent all our listeners all around the country. So exciting times, certainly in the world of soccer. And I believe we are just 3 weeks away from recapping Champions League matches on this podcast, which I've mentioned from the start of this show. I'm going to be awfully excited to do. I think the Champions League is the best year-to-year competition possibly in international sports. I think certainly in international sports. I think the best competition would be the World Cup, clearly. But the Champions League, a lot of exciting stuff. Great show today. But I wanted to start with Manchester United. 2-0 defeat against Burnley, and it was an absolute disaster. Burnley right now, not nearly anything close to an intimidating team in the Premier League. And Manchester United losing fairly easily, 2-0 to Burnley, is something that would be shocking to anybody from the year 2008, from the year 2011, from the year 2005, right? Would be absolutely shocking if you told that result to them. But this is 2020. And I've talked about this on the show many times, and I want to hit on it again. We have to change our expectations for Manchester United. They are now a club that will drop these types of matches. They are a club that will have to fight to get into Champions League positioning. It will be not easy every year. It's not going to be easy for Manchester United. Some years, they'll get in. They might even have a 3 or 4 year run where they will get in. But they're in that class, a tier below Manchester City, a tier below Liverpool, and once Chelsea finishes its rebuild after the transfer ban, a tier below Chelsea. They fell behind. And they are no longer the Manchester United that we all grew up knowing and some of us loving. And Sir Alex Ferguson should and will get a lot of credit for what he did at Manchester United, and the managers that have followed him, whether it be David Moyes, whether it be Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, these guys have made Sir Alex Ferguson look even more legendary, look even better, look even smarter, look even crisper. But this dives way deeper than the manager. And poor Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which that is the most difficult name in soccer to pronounce, and there's quite a few of them. Poor him, because answering those questions to the press about transfers and whether they're going to buy somebody to try to bring somebody in, it's a big job. It's a job that many are now questioning if he was ready for. And it's a guy that's trying to take a young team and overachieving expectations. It's like a team in the SEC, like LSU, who had too high expectations for too long. It just really wears on people. But how did this happen for Manchester United? Because the money is certainly still there. They're still fairly popular. It's because they didn't catch up. It's because they didn't keep up. So let me give you an example from sports. I want you to go back to whatever youth sport you were really interested in, or as a kid, or that you've seen, or perhaps you have a son or daughter that is 11 or 12, and is excellent at the sport they play. Absolutely excellent, exquisite. They're better than the other kids. They're a little taller. They're a better natural athlete. They're faster. In soccer, their touch is better. In baseball, their contact is better. They have a better arm. All these things. And then 4 or 5 years later, the other kids caught up. The other kids got bigger, stronger, faster. They worked harder. They developed more. Maybe they cared a little more. And all of a sudden, that kid that was dominating at 11, dominating at 12, 16 is no longer dominant. Still solid. You can never take away that natural talent they had at 11 and 12. If you're great at something at 11 and 12, you're still going to at least be average at that thing for the rest of your life. But being great takes way more. And it's exactly what happened in the Premier League. Manchester City started investing. And not only did they spend money, they spent money on structure, on an organization, on a way of doing things. And that has really worked for them. Look at Liverpool. They've thrown money all over the place. But we've talked about on this show many times, Liverpool is more than just a team. They are a structure. They are an identity. They're a unit. They developed. They worked on themselves. They embraced modern soccer in all its challenges and all its analytics, in all its new ways of playing, while Manchester United did not. Chelsea even is more advanced in the way they scout, in the way they handle their business, and they went through a transfer ban. And so unfortunately what's happened with Manchester United is they have fallen behind. And I'm here to tell you that it's probably too late. They have now fallen, because when you look at those elite athletes, to go back to our example, it's not like they can flip the switch, decide to care at 17, and then become great again, be as good as they were when 11 and 12, because they didn't work hard enough or grow enough or have enough luck from ages 12 to 17. Now they've fallen behind. And it will take a large effort to catch up, and it may not ever happen. And Manchester United allowed this to happen in their own city with their arch rival. And then in Liverpool with their other arch rival. And all you can say if you're a Manchester United fan is you have to be able to look around at yourself and be honest. You are not what you once were. You have fallen behind. And that's okay. Not saying Manchester United will never win another Premier League. Not saying they will never be competitive again at the top of European competition. I'm not saying that. They still have a ton of money. And they are still Manchester United in some way. But they will never be as dominant as they once were because everybody else is caught up. Everybody else is spending as much, if not more. They have a better structure, better decision-making. Their home field advantages are just as strong. Old Trafford is no longer the best home field advantage in the Premier League. That belongs to Anfield, to Liverpool. 50 straight matches in the Premier League, unbeaten at home. Those things have switched now. It's a different time. It's a different age. And that happens in sports. It happens all the time. But we have this tendency to hold on to things that have once happened, to when we were developing, when we were growing up, what we experienced, and expect that to continue on forever. But it's just not how it works nowadays. This world is too fast. This world is too advanced. This world is too competitive. Because the money in sports has grown so exponentially that it is well worth the time and money of the most powerful and smartest people in the world to invest into it, to create new ideas, to develop techniques, to spend energy on it. It's much more competitive. And that's why we see the gap widening in the leagues where there is a gap in spending. So the Premier League will always be competitive because Chelsea can spend with Liverpool and Liverpool can spend with Man City and Man United can spend with all of them. Tottenham can throw some money around on occasion. Arsenal on occasion. But in Italy, I mean, the gap between Juventus and Inter looking to buy Christian Eriksen, that's a big purchase. And Inter can spend money, but the gap is just too large. And in this age, once you get that gap so wide, it's going to become extremely difficult to ever overcome it. And that's kind of a little bit of the curse of the modern age. And you're seeing that with the dominant runs from Bayern Munich and Juventus, the dominant runs that we've seen in La Liga forever, Real Madrid and Barcelona. It's just a new age. It's a new time. And Manchester United is not the same as it once was. And not saying they'll never be at the top of the Premier League again, but those days are long from now. On the other side of the break, we'll talk about Liverpool. Another victory, this time a little shaky, 2-1 against Wolverhampton. We'll dive all into that matchup and Jurgen Klopp's boys and their continued dominance through the Premier League on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back into the show. Discuss Manchester United and how it's just different now. And it's one of those things that's really hard to swallow, especially in sports. And I think Dallas Cowboys fans have had to deal with this in the NFL, and you can go through numerous sports where fans have to deal with this, how teams have caught up, teams have spent the money, they understand the investment is worth it, the gap has shortened in some areas, and then because of those same reasons, widened in others. And Manchester United will have to completely remake who they are moving forward to catch up. But it's going to be really difficult because these teams have a big head start, and as technology advances, it's just going to be harder to catch up. So Manchester United is going to have to figure himself out pretty quickly if they want to be back in that tier. To me personally, it might be a little too late. But Liverpool has figured this entire thing out. They have mastered being a top-tier soccer program. And I saw an argument the other day that Liverpool spent their way to this, and yes, they have bought a lot of great players. And they've also developed some. But yes, this is mainly due to money. But Manchester United, we've discussed this, has spent just as much. So what's the difference? What's the difference between Manchester City and Liverpool right now? It's not that Liverpool just flatly spent more, even though when you look at the dollars they might have, that's not the reason at all. It's because they've mastered how to be a program, how to be a club, how to be a team, how to play together. And when you get momentum like this, when you get 50 straight unbeaten matches at home, when you're as good as they have been for as long as they have been in the best league in the world, there's reasons for that. Beyond spending, beyond talent. And I think I've mentioned this on show after show after show, and I will continue to mention it on show after show after show, about Jurgen Klopp bringing this German identity, this machine-like identity to Liverpool, where everybody works together. They have a very German formation, a German identity. They press. They pass crisply. And passing crisply is more than just German, obviously. But the way they connect, the way they're a team, the way there's not one star above all, has really propelled Liverpool to heights that nobody ever thought a Premier League team could ever reach. Especially as competitive and as much money is being spent right now. This is unbelievable what's happening with Liverpool. And I think it's going to continue on. We've dove through their schedule on this show before. Wolverhampton, credit to them, because they're a win away here from being in reach of the top 5, potentially top 4. They're doing a great job with limited resources. They don't have the advantages built in like Manchester United or some of these other top-flight teams. So all credit to them, and they're a tough opponent. But they're just no match for Liverpool in the end of it all. Firmino in the 84th minute, beautiful, finished, 2-1 victory. Move forward. Who's next? And I don't think anybody's going to beat this team outside of the Champions League. But even then, I find it hard to believe. Until March, till April, till Manchester City comes into town. That is the type of position that Liverpool now finds itself in. And I'm still definitely in favor of them pursuing Champions League above all, above that invincible season. Because they're going to win the Premier League. It's certain at this point. I mean, every projection model you look at, 538, if you look at some of the odds in Vegas, it's just Liverpool. It is going to be Liverpool. It is 99.99%. And if they somehow collapsed and didn't win this whole thing, it'd be unbelievably shocking. It would be tremor-like shocking. I just don't see it happening. Everything seems to be breaking their way too. They've caught a few breaks throughout the year, and I think the Wolverhampton game is some example of it. And when breaks are catching like that, when you have a team playing together the way they are, and you've spent the money Liverpool has, and you have the structure they have to develop young players, and you have the manager that's just on a roll, these things are hard to stop. And they're going to win the Premier League. Will they win every match? That remains to be seen. Should they go for every match if they don't need to? If it jeopardizes their opportunity to win the Champions League? No, I don't think they should. I think winning the Champions League, winning the Premier League, even with one loss, is a better accomplishment than finishing the Premier League undefeated and losing out in the Champions League. It's not something that I'd want to see Liverpool do. I don't want to see them fall in the Champions League. Unbelievable what they're accomplishing, though, right now. Just absolutely unstoppable. So fun to watch. Can't wait to watch them every time they're on. Can't wait to see them against the top-tier competition in the Champions League. I want to see if they can do this, the back-to-back, the repeat, which was something that was extremely rare until Real Madrid did it earlier this decade. So Liverpool, a lot of fun. Little bit of news from England. Tottenham Hotspur possibly moving one of their star players to Italy, and Inter Milan, who's in second place in Serie A right now. We dive into that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lukas Moore. Give us a follow on Twitter at GSMC_soccer. Rate, subscribe, review, all those beautiful things on this podcast, your favorite podcast platform. Help us out and check out all the other great podcasts on the GSMC Podcast Network. Christian Eriksen heading to Inter Milan, possibly. Not a done deal yet. Doesn't really change what's going to happen in Serie A this year. Right now, when you look at 538, Juventus is at the top of the table, 4 points clear of Inter. Inter, a good squad, a squad that's close to Juventus, but Juventus has won this league for a long time, and they have the best player in the world, currently, in my opinion, Cristiano Ronaldo, and those odds are really high to overcome. I don't think Christian Eriksen is the type of player that would overcome those odds for Inter Milan, because Juventus is Juventus. One, they have this unbelievable confidence because they've won the league time and time again. And this confidence really helps when you get on this type of roll. When you start to get in your own head in a game, then you're like, oh, we're Juventus. It's going to be fine. You stay calm in certain situations. I think urgency in soccer can really get you in trouble. Staying calm, staying patient, waiting for your opportunities, especially when you tend to have more talent, is a smart way to go about things. And so Juventus being the defending champions, having Cristiano Ronaldo, it makes it hard for me to believe that they'll lose this lead. Certainly possible. And Christian Eriksen, maybe he is that piece for Inter Milan for them to make that jump, for them to scoot past Juventus, for them to finally change hands of the Serie A trophy. Maybe that's in the cards here. Not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but when you look at it, it's Cristiano Ronaldo and it's Juventus. Don't overthink things like this. Just from a talented midfielder for Tottenham is making a move to Italy. It doesn't feel like a change that will shake everything up. And it's a change and a move that might not be made now. Tottenham might wait till the summer to complete this thing. So it's interesting times for sure in Serie A. Inter Milan might be trying to make a run at it. AC Milan, I criticized not AC Milan, but specifically Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and I wanted to move into this for a second. I criticized Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I disagreed with his decision to leave the MLS, to leave LA Galaxy, and head back to Italy. As a guy that's 38, going on 39 years old, a guy who maybe can't athletically compete at the same level he once did, especially in a league like Serie A. And he was so dominant in MLS. To me, for Zlatan, if I were his public relations guy, which I'm not, and I don't know what Zlatan's inner desires are. I don't know if he'd rather live in Italy. I don't know if he got tired of Los Angeles. I'm not sure if it's personal reasons. But in terms of your career, Los Angeles is a huge city. You were making some sort of impact in the sport of soccer there. You admitted it yourself when you left. I thought it would have been a great place for Zlatan to stay and finish his career. And finish it out in the MLS. Look what David Beckham's been able to do in Major League Soccer, the United States, by finishing his career out there. I know he had a few stints there at the end, but essentially rode it out. I think Zlatan had a year or two left of dominance in Major League Soccer. And he had a natural rival, and he had an opportunity to bring a championship to LA Galaxy, all those fun things. But he elected to go to AC Milan. And I said on a show a few weeks ago that was not the right move for Zlatan Ibrahimovic at all. Did not say it wasn't the right move for AC Milan. Now, Zlatan hasn't been a star, hasn't been making headlines as much, but he has been effective, and he has helped AC Milan to a 4-win, 1-draw, no-loss record since Zlatan's arrival. And AC Milan has moved up the table, going from a mid-tier team now up to 31 points, 4 back from Atalanta, still 20 points back from Juventus, but it's a change for AC Milan, and it's a move in the right direction. Now, it can be a little bit of the competition they played. It can be a combination of many things. But it's hard for me to come on the show and say, hey, AC Milan, they made the wrong move by getting Zlatan. I think AC Milan certainly made the right move. Is that the right move for Ibrahimovic? The brand, the legacy, the goal scorer, phenom, the dominant, the unstoppable Zlatan. I'm not sure. But he's put in some goals. AC Milan has looked really good. And maybe they'll keep winning. And I'd love for Zlatan to prove me wrong. Because when that guy is at the top of his game, some of the most entertaining soccer around ever. The bicycle kick against Sweden, his debut for LA Galaxy, the countless goals in countless leagues for countless trophies and countless teams. He's been the epitome of entertainment. And you hope that continues with AC Milan. It's going better than I thought for him. Still not as good as I think LA Galaxy would have been. But now they've got Chicharito. We'll see if he can challenge Carlos Vela. If Zlatan couldn't take down Vela in LAFC in that rivalry consistently, and Vela ended up being the better player at the end of it all, for me, Chicharito isn't the player that Ibrahimovic is right now or was ever. But we'll see. He's in LA, Southern California, a lot of hype around it. He feels great about it. And maybe it'll work. Maybe Javier Hernandez is the next star in the MLS. Certainly made a lot of headlines. Will certainly be interesting for LA Galaxy. On the other side of the break, Barcelona. We talked about how I didn't agree with their moving on from the manager to bringing on Kiki Setien. And it's not going well so far for Barcelona. We'll talk about their really shaky performance in the Copa del Rey on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Big welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lukas Moore. Just talked before the break. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and his move to AC Milan. But I wanted to move into Barcelona. Because I had to watch. So the Copa del Rey was on. Barcelona was playing a third-tier Spanish team I'd never heard of before, Ibiza. It's spelled Ibiza. I think it's pronounced Ibiza. Listen, it's a third-tier Spanish team. It's hard to follow all the teams in world soccer, especially once you get into the third tier of the Spanish league. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the score. I'm checking down on my computer. I'm just following the game. I've got another match on the TV, and I look down, and I'm like, I've got to turn this Barcelona game on. They're down. They're trailing in the Copa del Rey. What is going on? And I had to watch a match where they don't even have the classic stadium camera. It's on a very low angle. Not a horrible television production whatsoever, and I actually quite enjoy the announcers. But it was weird that I had to watch it. It was crazy that I had to watch it. Crazy that I had to watch them score a goal just before extra time from Griezmann to barely sneak by Ibiza. You combine this performance with the stories we heard just before it about how Lionel Messi is completely in control at Barcelona, and Setien has zero power, and the players are essentially running the show. And we've talked about on previous shows how I think firing managers mid-season is a bad idea most of the time. I think there are times when it can be acceptable. There are times when you can explain to me your decision, and I can believe in it, perhaps even buy into it. But just to me, it just doesn't work most of the time. Because it shows your team, it shows the organization, it shows the players, especially someone as powerful, as rich, as famous as Lionel Messi. It shows them that the manager has no power here. And the next one we hire won't either. Because you guys could, go out late on a night, not perform very well a couple times, or maybe just not even perform well, not even doing anything extra, just go on a bad run of form, and that manager's getting fired. It's so unstable. It's hard to operate that way in anything. Imagine if you're at your job, you make a mistake. You make more money than your boss, you make a mistake, and your boss gets fired for it, and you still make as much money and don't get criticized for anything. Are you going to listen to the boss that comes in next, who's making less money, who's less famous, less well-known? No. And that's the situation Barcelona is in. They have not entrusted somebody with their club like Liverpool has, like Manchester City has. There's no belief in a guy. And they finally found a dude, and it's just not the right fit, it feels like. And you can't have these players controlling their schedules and controlling the lineup even. Some rumors of that happening with Barcelona. It's a scary situation for them because they're in the middle of a really tight 43 points each La Liga race with their arch rival Real Madrid. And with that performance I saw in the middle of the week, combined with these rumors, combined with the idea that I have that firing a manager midseason is a bad idea, how can I not come out again and say I think that La Liga is Real Madrid's to lose? Real Madrid has the La Liga in their grasp despite being tied at 43 points. And the only path I see to Barcelona winning this whole thing is Lionel Messi apparently also coaching the team, but literally putting the team on his back on the field and carrying them all the way through La Liga. Because Griezmann pocketed 2 goals against this third-tier squad, and that's great, but Messi's the only one that can do it against the top of the top, the best competition in La Liga, do it consistently. and lead them to a title. It takes so much more to win a title, especially when you have Real Madrid neck and neck with you. And it's going to have to be all Messi. And he will deserve a lot of credit this year, because I'm not saying it's Messi's fault what's happening with the team, or that Messi shouldn't be in control, or shouldn't be not listening to Setien. But it would be awfully impressive if within these situations, within these environments, Messi somehow carries Barcelona to La Liga title this year and being competitive in the Champions League. Would it be as impressive if Cristiano Ronaldo led Juventus to a Champions League? No. But it would certainly open my eyes if Barcelona were able to right this ship and figure this thing out, because it feels like it's sprinting right down here. And they have a big match against Valencia this weekend, and Valencia is competitive. Don't doubt Valencia. I think Valencia could get them this weekend, and they could fall behind Real Madrid. That's what is staring Barcelona in the face right now. And they'll have to figure it out. They'll have to right the ship, or it will be a long season, a season of regret, a season of why did we make such a rash change? Was it a change we really needed to make? How are we going to empower a manager in the future? Or will we always let the players run the show here at Barcelona? I promise you that last option, always letting the players run the show, always giving the players more power, is not the way to build a dominant soccer club. And Barcelona knows this, because the last time they empowered a manager, his name was Pep Guardiola, and he almost invented and popularized an entire style of soccer, leading to two of the most dominant, fun, interesting, exciting seasons of soccer we've seen at the beginning of this decade. And it tied right in with Spain winning the World Cup. That's the last time Barcelona empowered a manager. Truly empowered a manager. Yes, they've been competitive since. Yes, they've had a lot of talent. But the last time it really clicked at the highest level, they empowered a manager. I think you got to find a guy and empower him. Believe in him. Believe in his vision. Believe in what he's doing. I think that's true in all sports. I think that it's necessary in all sports to have that. And Jurgen Klopp is a beautiful example of it in world soccer right now with Liverpool. So Barcelona, empower somebody, but right now, because this guy's in power, you can't fire him again. You can't find a new guy. Right now, let's see what Messi can do. Because if he carries this entire thing and leads him to a championship, oh boy, that'd be impressive. Awfully impressive. Big Bundesliga weekend coming up. We'll dive into that on the other side of the break. This is the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Bundesliga is tight. Bundesliga is competitive right now. Bayern not in first. Leipzig in first with Bayern trailing. Huge weekend. The match I wanted to talk about, the match I wanted to highlight, Bayern Munich against Schalke. Schalke 04. Which generally Schalke finds its way at the top of the table. And before Bayern started this run of dominance, they even won the league once, which is absolutely crazy to say in the Bundesliga. Which is absolutely crazy to say in the German league, right? But to me, especially 538 agrees with me, I think Bayern an 87% chance to win this match. Bayern has figured it out. Hansi Flick has somehow gotten these players to trust him. Now, they fired their manager midseason, but Niko Kovac, that was one of those mid-season firings that I can almost understand because you have a 5-1 loss to Frankfurt. My family is from around Frankfurt, right? My uncle's favorite team is Eintracht Frankfurt. Bayern Munich should never lose 5-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt. And in fact, it was such an embarrassing performance from Bayern Munich that I texted my uncle when Frankfurt were beating the brains in of Bayern. Like, wow, you must be happy. And he said, Bayern isn't even trying. They don't like this manager. I'm not happy with this. I'm like, well, you're not happy with this? You're not happy with a 5-1 victory for your own team against your least favorite team? That's how much of a mess Niko Kovac was for Bayern Munich. And I think a lot of people in Germany thought that a managerial change might help Bayern, and it's exactly what it's done. Now, can Hansi Flick be that elite-level manager? I think he can. I think that you should empower him because he's a Jupp Heynckes guy. Jupp Heynckes was the last empowered manager Bayern had, and what did he do? Led him to glory. Empower Hansi Flick. Believe in him. I think Bayern is going to have a really good performance this weekend. And I have high expectations for Bayern Munich against Schalke. And it's really interesting because the goalkeeper for Schalke, Nubel, he's going to Bayern. It's already agreed upon in the summer, but he still has to finish out the season here. He had his captain's armband stripped. Will he even play in this match this weekend? That's a question. I'm sure he will, but, maybe he can let a goal in, for your future team. I don't think he would do that. I think he wants to be competitive. I think all these guys would. But Bayern Munich is at this point where their lineup feels good. It feels like they have a feel of what they're doing. They seem to be rolling. They seem to be in a rhythm. And this is a tough competition. This is a tougher opponent. So it will be a little bit of a test, but this should be a match that Bayern handles and handles easily, especially if they are the team that's going to take an 8th straight German championship. If they want to win the Bundesliga this year, they have to show out this weekend for me to really believe it. One, because Leipzig might not lose, so you need to keep pace with points, first and foremost. And two, it's just to have that feeling moving forward that you really have figured it out, that it wasn't just a couple of easy opponents, and yeah, everything feels better, and that guy Kovac's gone, and we like this new manager, and for it to feel really successful and feel like it is moving in the right direction, feel like the wave is really pushing Bayern towards an 8th straight German championship, it's going to take an impressive performance, a dominant performance, a FC Bayern Munich performance. And we all know what those are. High scoring, high possession, dominance. And they've done it against the best clubs in the world. And they could certainly do it against Schalke this weekend. And in fact, I almost expect them to do it against Schalke this weekend. It's really interesting. I always recommend this page, 538. They do great statistics for more than just soccer, for everything from politics to sports. And this is how they have their Bundesliga outlook looking. Right now, Bayern Munich is 64% to win the Bundesliga, although they are 4 points back of Leipzig. They can't even catch Leipzig this weekend. 538, through all their analysis and data and player analysis, says that Bayern Munich has a 64% chance to win the league. Leipzig at 31%, Dortmund at 4%. I just think it's Bayern Munich because they have this positive momentum, but it's something we need to see this weekend. Schalke down right now at 33 points. That's competitive, only 3 points behind Bayern. They're looking at this match as an opportunity to not only knock off Bayern Munich's momentum, but to push forward, potentially in the league, which would be absolutely huge for them. It's really interesting match day. Wolfsburg versus Hertha. Gladbach versus Mainz. Leipzig playing Frankfurt. We mentioned them already. Boy, would it be nice for Bayern fans if Frankfurt were able to pull that off, but Leipzig feels like they're rolling. Timo Werner staying throughout the season. Leverkusen, Fortuna. Freiburg, Paderborn. Really interesting slate. Dortmund won yesterday, so they've already collected some of their points. And then we take a look a little farther down the road. Bayern Munich's playing Mainz, so this will be the biggest test for them in a little while. But Bayern Munich matches up really well with Schalke. I think they'll win, but it's about how they look when they win as to whether I'll feel even more confident about their chances to win the Bundesliga this season. We're going to go ahead and take a break. On the other side of the break, the FIFA president came out and said that the United States can be a world power at the men's game. I've said that on the show before. We'll talk about those comments and how close is the United States to being a world power on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Big welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. So the FIFA president came out with a meeting with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was at the forefront of getting the World Cup into the United States in 2026, although some reports said that he was almost the reason why it didn't happen. Not because of him, but because of him, if you know what I'm saying. He didn't do anything, but because he is who he is and he's controversial, it almost had it stripped. But it was with a meeting with Donald Trump, the FIFA president. He might have been playing to the crowd a little bit, playing to the president, and saying that the U.S. was this close to being a world power in soccer. But he is not wrong. Because I have made this argument many times. It's not a hard thing to figure out. The United States is great at every single sport they put money in. They are one of the best 5 in the world at nearly every single thing they try. Sprinters. Yes, most great ones come from Jamaica. But do you know that when Usain Bolt broke that world record in the 100-meter dash, that an American also broke the world record on the same sprint, but was just a tick slower than Usain Bolt? Tyson Gay. Go through the Olympics. I mean, are Americans rushing to the television to watch sprinters all day? Are they rushing to the television to watch marathon runners or golfers? No. Do other countries try in these sports? Yes. So how on earth is America still great at those sports? Well, it's because, one, 300 plus million people live here. It's the most expansive, largest economy in world history. And it's the most athletically centered culture in world history. I mean, go back to the Greeks and the Romans, right, when they're wrestling around and gladiators and all that stuff. It's not even close to what goes on in the United States every single day. Everybody is obsessed with finding the sport, finding the niche, finding the thing that their son or daughter can do so that they can be a professional athlete. Professional athletes in our world are elevated to a place that is beyond comprehension. And these things drive the United States to be athletic, to be sports-centric, right? Even the way we do our politics is like sports. Red versus blue, races, teams, percentages. 538, the website I just read off of, an American website created by an American person. They do the statistics for politics the same way I'm looking at this Bundesliga page right now. Sports is king here. Sports is central here. That means you're going to have a lot of athletes. You combine 300 million people, a lot of money to give people resources, and then a country that's just bonkers for sports. And you're going to be great at everything you try in sports. That's America. That's what we are in everything. And we've let this attitude filter through the United States soccer consciousness that we will never be great at soccer, which is absolutely crazy to me. It's the United States. We've got so many people here. We have way more soccer players than Iceland, who's just in the World Cup and competitive. Way more soccer players than Germany. We spend more money, potentially, than some of these other countries. Our domestic league is 5th or 6th in the world. Like, there is no reason whatsoever that the United States can't be what the FIFA president said they should be, which is a world power in soccer, because they are a world power in everything else. It doesn't matter that the passion just isn't there and the culture isn't there. No, the problem is the program isn't structured correctly. The belief isn't there. The players aren't developed correctly at the highest levels. And these things are all fixable. These things are all things you can certainly correct. It just takes know-how, it takes effort, and hopefully Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride can figure this thing out. Because they have a behemoth at their fingertips that they just need to figure this thing out. And Americans are starting to figure it out on their own. This is what Christian Pulisic did. Yes, he was a little bit of the United States development system, but Dortmund developed him. Look at Gio Reyna, who's making his debut for Dortmund as well. Weston McKennie, Tim Way. All these guys found their own way, but these American prodigies are going to start coming much faster. Why? Because soccer is on TV and everywhere. So 10 years ago, if I wanted to do this podcast, day by day, do you know how I would have to get my information? One, I'd have to go through newspaper clippings. I'd have to stream illegally television in Britain, and I'm not even sure if that would have been possible, right? Could I watch a full Copa del Rey match on my TV 10 years ago? No, but I can pull it up now. I can watch every goal, every highlight, every moment. I can do that right now in the United States. Certainly. And what that does is it just makes kids like the game more. Why? Because it's on TV. The Major League Soccer is growing to so many cities. You don't think there are kids in Cincinnati right now, a 6-year-old, who marched that mile of orange and blue to the FC Cincinnati Stadium, the beautiful scenes of thousands of people cheering for soccer. You don't think there's a 5 or 6-year-old that's inspired to go practice a little bit more, to have that American grit and toughness in that search for greatness? No, that's happening everywhere. And that's why we will see more and more American prodigies. It's clicked in this country, I'm telling you. Soccer has reached the point in this country where there is no longer an excuse for the United States not to be at least one of the top 10 teams at this sport in the world. We are out of excuses. It's not the 70s where people didn't even know the rules of this thing. It's not the 80s or the 90s where it was made fun of. It wasn't even the early 2000s when I came up, when I was playing, when I was called a grass fairy, a sissy, a baby for playing this game. Sure, that still happens in some parts of the country, but soccer it's here. It's arrived in a way that it can arrive. Hockey, is hockey that popular? No, it's just as popular as soccer is. But when hockey clicked in this country, guess what the United States was? Great at hockey. Miracle on Ice. Ever heard of it? I have. That's what the United States is all about. So there's no reason they can't be a world power. Now, are they close? No, I don't think the structure is there. They still need time. But you have a date, you have a moment, you have a tournament in 2026 that is your time. And the reason I'm coming on this podcast and I'm talking about the year 2026, 6 years from now, things will happen that I can't even fathom, both to me and to the world, throughout those 6 years. The reason I'm talking about it now is because it has to start now. Because the moment will be there for the United States to jump into the top 3 soccer powers in the world. If they want it, if they need it, if they can have it, if they can stand it, if they do it correctly. That is the opportunity that can present itself to the United States. It's in front of them. I'm telling you it's in front of them because it's worked in everything else. And I'm tired of everybody dismissing, United States just never going to be good at soccer. We're good at darts, right? We got some dudes that can play some darts on occasion, and nobody cares about darts here. But somehow there's a player that finds his way into the top 20. We don't just go through the sports. Pole vaulting, javelin, shot put. I mean, all these are Olympic sports. You can go lacrosse. Like, we are sports. It's the United States. How could we not be a top 10 country at something? No, we're like 25th. Behind who? Croatia? Croatia. We're going to let Croatia be better. For no reason other than they care more. Those are bad arguments, right? Sports and being dominant in international sport and international competition has always been and will always be about money, structure, and talent development. And the United States has 2 of the 3. And so many of these other countries do not have those 2 that the United States has. Yet their development is so good that they find a way to hang around the top 10. But to be a Germany, to be an Argentina, to be a Spain, to be in England, although England, only won World Cup. But you understand what I'm saying. To be that you have to have those three things. And the United States has those two way more than a lot of the countries that have all three. So if they can figure out the third thing, then they will be a world power. Will they figure it out? I don't know. I don't think they're knocking on the door for 2022, but if they do this right, if they dedicate to it, if they understand that it is possible, and they feed that into the culture, it can certainly happen in 2026. That's going to do it for our show today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I sure enjoyed doing it. We'll see you on Monday. Check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast as well, and all the great podcasts on the GSMC Podcast Network. Follow us at GSMC_soccer on Facebook, GSMC Soccer. Hit us up, give us a like, give us a rate, give us a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. This has been the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.